Welcome to the Glazier Nation podcast, where we uncover the best stories and the best practices of the glass and glazing industry. Whether you're a seasoned vet or just starting out your journey, this show's a great place for entertainment and a deeper understanding of our industry. I'm your host, John Spellman, and I'm truly honored to take you beyond the glass. Welcome back, everybody. This week's guest is Dustin Anderson. Dustin is a third-generation glazer and owner of D1 Design. And you may have seen Dustin prior to this podcast on Fixer Upper, where he was the glass guy or the glazer. Dustin's also spoken at Glass Build on mental health and hiring and retaining millennials. We discussed all aspects of that journey, from third-generation glazer to TV to now owner of a design company, and I really enjoyed this conversation with Dustin. Quick housekeeping, make sure you check out glazernationpodcast.com to vote for Best Glass Shop Name. The winner's going to win that $1,500 TerraTrack from OmniCube. Shout out to OmniCube for providing that prize, and good luck to all the contestants. The Glazier Nation podcast is sponsored by Glazier Nation. You can check out all their offerings at glazernation.com. If you're interested in sponsoring the podcast or other marketing opportunities, go to glazernation.com/marketing. And if you have questions for me, or you know someone that would make a great guest for the show, you can contact us on any of our social medias at Glazier Nation Podcast.
Quietest part of State TV Star, but yeah, we got a chance to play, so yeah, this is a good time.
I was curious, I was thinking about that. So, what was the show?
Fixer Upper.
Fixer Upper. And how many episodes were you on?
Man, all of our work was on every episode. There was 6 seasons, so every house for 6 seasons was, for the most part, was our work. They had done some weird stuff in the second season where they used some other folks, but for the most part, it was us. So, and I think I was on like 20 something episodes.
And your work was showers, windows, what was it?
Yeah, anything glass. I mean, we even went to them between seasons 2 and 3. I was like, look, we can do steel work. We can build custom frames for mirrors, but ultimately it was all interior residential. So sometimes it was like sliding doors on a study, but then most of the time it was, showers. Dude, even like custom open shelving for a kitchen. So like iron, steel brackets with glass, all the way through.
And this was you had a glazing contract company that did this work?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah, it was a family-owned business, Anderson Glass. My dad started in 1988, and then I bought in 2001, and I bought him out in 2014, which is kind of when things really started popping with the show.
So what I wanted to ask you is, like, did appearing on that show, did all sorts of weird doors start opening of different things you could do or different opportunities that were presented to you?
Yeah, for sure. It was a double-edged sword, though, I'll tell you that. So like, on the positive side, I had, people reaching out like, hey man, we want to get our product on the show. How do we do that? I got invited to Italy once to look at like front doors. They wanted some stuff, like they needed their name plastered on everything, which, I have zero control over, during that process. So that didn't happen, but there was some great stuff. I had the opportunity to do a little more speaking in the glazing industry. I kind of became a face for the guy that's in the house doing the residential glass work. And I liked it. I mean, I was all for it. But on the backside of it, I had other home builders that I'd done work for years, that if we had a delay on their glass or their job, whatever it was, like, hey man, where's my shower? Well, like 7 to 10 business days. Oh, I bet if I put you on TV, you get my shower here quicker. And so that part sucked. And that happened quite a bit. Like I would say for as much business as we gained, I probably lost a good half of what, I would lose half of the full of what we gained. It was a double-edged deal.
And people were just kind of salty about it or thought they should be getting something different?
Man, I don't know. Part of me wants to say that there was some jealousy there, that, there was another, local remodeling company getting the airtime that they were getting. I mean, it blew up. These guys have got their own network now. Jim and Joe they're big time. And so, and it's well deserved, but, I think there were probably some folks in town that thought maybe they were more deserving. I don't know. I definitely feel like, I lost some clients over it, and I gained some. So yeah, it is what it is.
So that was Anderson Glass. That was your father's company, but you're a third generationer. Is that right?
Third generation. Yeah. My grandfather, my dad's dad, he did commercial glass for Ben Swanger, like with Ben Swanger. And then he went on his own and installed stained glass windows all over the country. There was a company based out of Waco that built every aspect of a church: pews, the stained glass windows, I mean, just literally everything that you like would ship to a church and put in it. And so my grandfather would go and put the stained glass windows in. He did a little bit of everything. But my dad realized he couldn't work with his dad. So he went and jumped in the residential and commercial business in like 1988. Market kind of fell apart. He took a couple $100 and a blessing of my mom and opened his own place. Okay.
So your entire life in or around the glass industry, other second generationers, I'm a second generationer, other second generationers I've had on the show. Actually, the last episode was Ryan Shoemaker, and we kind of talked about how, and it feels like you might be a little bit opposite of this, but like I find a lot of second generationers, myself included, are constantly trying to leave the industry, at least to a certain point, right? Like,
sure.
I don't know if it's your teenage years, your 20s, whatever it is, you're trying to find something different, but it sounds like you kind of went all in.
Dude, I don't think it was what I wanted to do. I mean, the reality of it was my dad was really, really good at glass, but he wasn't very good at business. You know, when I started for him, I was coming out of retail management. I was good at what I did. I really didn't like myself because I'll be honest, I was a bit of an asshole. 20 years old, managing 108 people in a big box retail store that's, turned to $28 million a year is, you kind of feel edgy. I think it was the only way I thought I could get respect. So I really didn't like who I was in that life. But I learned a lot. And so the reality is I think I was able to transfer that information or that knowledge over. And so he was just like, hey, come help. I was looking at moving to Dallas Fort Worth area to stay in retail. And I went to help, and dude, it was like he was writing stuff on lottery tickets, like he'd go measure a job, it'd be written on a lottery ticket or on a napkin. And if you had to cash the lottery ticket in or the napkin blew off the dash, you had no information for the job. So it was one of those things where like I realized I was like, okay, I mean, my dad's a hustler. He'll make it. Yeah. He's going to work forever if I don't step in and help. So I like made a list of stuff and I was like, hey man, do A, B, and C, and I think things will be better for you. It's like, I don't want to do all that. It's like, why don't you buy in and you do that? And I was like, okay. So I went home and talked to my then girlfriend, now ex-wife, and was like, what do we do here? She's like, if you want to do it, do it. So I just dove in head first. And, but I think I did everything I could do to love it. And I think that was the thing. Like I did my best to do everything I could to love it.
Had you worked with him or for him prior to that retail management?
Yeah. Like, as a kid going with dad, to houses like, 13, 14, 15, a lot. Like, in the summertime, I'd go work with him. I didn't get on any big commercial stuff, but man, I was hell on setting Dallas clips for mirrors. I could set them all day long, measure them out, space it out, poke a hole, get a plug in the wall, that sort of thing. So
sure.
I've been around it pretty much my whole life.
So and I don't know if this came from Fixer Up or if this came after, but kind of along the theme of those opportunities and different doors that might have opened. You've designed or invented some tools that C.R. Lawrence sells, right?
Yeah, for sure. It was one of those deals where I just had an idea and kind of played with it. And, I have ADHD, like everybody's got it, right? Just a little bit. Mine's probably high functioning. But I had, taken some Adderall, was trying to, checking that prescription out and seeing, if that was going to help me or not. And due to just like things that I had in the back of my head, I just started playing with. And so I went from drawing them out to creating them. And I had 2 working prototypes like within about 6 days. And then, and so I reached out to them. I was like, I don't have them. I did my research. I looked into utility patents. They're really expensive, between 15 and 25,000 at the time for each one. And I had 4 different tools that would make your life a little easier for installing frameless showers, specifically for installing frameless showers, all 4 tools. And so I reached out to them like, how does this work? And they're like, well, we work with Glaziers all the time. So you give us the idea. And if we like it, we'll manufacture it, we'll market it, the whole shoot match. And then we'll just give you a cut. And this is before CRL sold, it was long before. I kind of feel like I feel like more it's accountant based now and you're just a number, but back then, like it was kind of a different animal.
Sure.
They were cool. Like it was a cool deal. And I was like, well, what keeps you guys from, snatching my idea up? They're like, look, man, we're not going to get ideas from Glaziers if we're in the business of that.
Yeah.
The guy that I was working with was amazing. I trusted him, sent it all to him, and they made me a deal. And I was like, this is the only way it's ever going to happen. So
all
paperwork and
all 4 tools at the same time.
No, I spaced it out probably about 6 to 8 weeks between them.
Okay.
Because as I was like coming up with stuff, I was like, hey man, this is like prototyping tools is a blast. So started playing with all the ideas that I had sketched out over the years and made them all reality.
And are those still items that they sell?
Dude, I haven't been on their website in a while, but my guess is yes. Yeah.
Okay.
They were the cover. They put out a catalog one time that was just shower door hardware tools.
Yeah.
And 2 of my tools were on the cover.
Cool.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure they still sell them. They were making a lick.
So
I got $12 for each one that they sold. I think they were selling for like $136 a piece, something like that at the time.
okay. Yeah. I mean, that's a good deal for them.
Great deal for them.
So some guys out on a job site, he's got an idea for a tool. You think he should still go to CRL?
Dude, here's what I would say. I would say you got to do what's best for you. I wanted to see these things brought to light. I wanted to see my name attached to something that gave back to this industry. Because, when I started this thing, man, glass companies didn't help each other. It did this thing that you guys do, where you guys are talking to glaziers and you're connecting people and they're helping each other out. That wasn't the thing, man. It was more like some of the chat rooms you get in where everybody's blasting each other, and you post a picture of your shower and everybody beats it up within the first 10 comments. You feel like you need to take the picture down. It was more like that, peer to peer. And so, I didn't know what to do with it. So I would say you got to do what's best for you. I wanted to see these things. I wanted to see them happen. And there was no way at that time. I was younger, I had kids and they were my responsibility. And, I was looking for some passive income and at the same time, I wanted to do something cool. So that's what I did. I would say if that works for you, great. I will tell you that the contract that I signed, I had my buddy who's a lawyer look at, and he's like, man, I have stuff that's like way less important than the invention of the tool. He's like, so for me, he's like, I wouldn't sign it, but I signed it the next day and sent it off. I want to see the tools come to life, man. And CRL at that time did that. So hats off to them. They were doing some cool stuff.
Yeah. It sounds like not a great deal, but the way you put it, you weren't gonna get that patent. So like,
they were gonna sit on the shelf. As an idea.
Why not? Okay, fixer upper, making tools. Anderson Glass. What do you still own that? Does that still exist?
It still exists. We don't really operate. I still utilize the glass side of it to support my design company. Because I still use a ton of glass. I mean, it's what I know. So we build a lot of custom trophy cases and things like that. So you still utilize glass in some crazy ways. We'll use glass with standoffs to create like record boards and things like that. So I still utilize.
Let's bookmark real quick. Let's talk about that. So that is D1 Design, right?
D1 Design Group, yeah.
And that's is that your shirt, or does your shirt say design?
Yeah. It says designer, but the I is.
Okay, all right. So D1 Design. When did this come about?
2014, the same time fixture upper was kind of started to take off. Those 2 things almost ran in tandem.
And you already kind of hinted there, trophy display cases, D1, people can probably start connecting the dots, but you're doing cool stuff for D1 universities or any university?
Any university, but our core is mid-majors. We've got some Power 5s, but essentially we're an interior design company that markets to recruiting. I mean, I don't know how else it doesn't sound very cool, but if you get a chance to look at the work that we do, it's creative and fun. And the spaces that we create are pretty cool. And at the end of the day, like we'll get to see pictures we'll do a full locker room remodel. We'll get to see a video of the student athletes coming in and seeing it. And just like the looks on their faces, they're with their phones, videoing it. Like that's killer for us. Like that's what it's about.
Yeah. So what's a couple schools that you've done?
We've done a little work for Nebraska football. We do a ton of work at Baylor, LSU women's basketball as a client, Oral Roberts out of Tulsa, Texas Tech, UNT, University of North Texas. Most of our work is Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Mississippi, but we've done work for like Wichita State, like I said, Nebraska. So we're kind of getting a little further and further away from home. But for the most part, like our main core states are here, but we'll pretty much go anywhere. If we can make it work for the client, we'll go wherever.
And we'll get some video up of some of the work you've done, but people listening to audio only, we're talking like they've seen it on ESPN or on social media. They've seen the balling out locker rooms, and yeah, you're exactly right.
It's essentially like what makes a 15 or 16-year-old kid walk in and look at this place and say, I want to go to this school over the other school that's offering me a cool ride, whatever that ride is. Why is this one better? And it's cool shit. Like, I mean, that's the answer, you know? So it's lights, it's signage, it's badass lockers. Like, that's just it's kind of the jam.
And you're doing the whole kit, not just glass.
Yeah, we'll turnkey the whole thing if we have to. I mean, we'll subcontract out like carpet and stuff like that, but everything else we're manufacturing and putting in ourselves.
And are you doing that directly with the university, or is that like through a general contractor? How's that work?
Directly to the university.
Okay.
It's crazy because it's really organic. You know, once you get in with a coach, you know, he may leave and you're going wherever he's going, but the relationship you already built with the school that he was at is there. So we just have got some really good relationships with some really quality schools. And so they just kind of stay with you. And the same thing, like if an assistant goes and gets his head coaching job, his or her head coaching job for the first time, you're the first call. Because when they walk in a place, man, they want it to be theirs. So it's like, whatever the previous coach had, get that shit out. Let's get this new stuff in.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Get the personal touch, but like, is that you? So, okay, you've got the organic kind of word of mouth, coach moves here, but like, is that who's making the purchasing decision? Is it the coach or who? I guess it depends on market or sell to if you had to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's what coach wants, like whatever coach wants. Ultimately, now, you know, we've got great relationships with athletic directors and associate athletic directors, and those really are those are some pretty awesome people. And again, once you've got those relationships, you know, you just it's the same thing as being in the glass business. It's like having a home builder that you do work for. Once you're in and you take care of them, and they know that you're going to deliver, you know, you'll do every sport on campus before it's over with. But ultimately, the decision is financially comes from, you know, the athletic side of business most of the time, but from a design, what we're putting in standpoint, that's usually a coach.
I don't know if this would be related or crossover or anything, but have you seen the glass sports floor?
No. Oh, wait. Are you talking about the one that's got the LEDs underneath it?
Yes.
So
we did a podcast. It's probably, I think you're episode 25 or 26. So it was Christoph Babinski. I'm going to guess he was episode 12, 13. It's something I could look up easily, but he's the guy that made this glass sports floor that's like, it's very amazing. Cool. And I saw them just feature it in the NBA like super recently.
Yeah, I think at the All-Star game.
Yeah, obviously, yes. Yeah, All-Star game. Obviously not in the locker room where you're working, but it's glass. It's related to sports. I don't know. Maybe there's a crossover there.
Dude, I mean, that's literally how the company got started. I've got a buddy that's in home automation, and he was doing a Power 5 head football coach's house here in Texas. And he called me and he's like, dude, I get to do whatever I want in the media room. He's like, let's do some cool shit. He's like, I know you do. And I just had the glass business. So like we had like sandblasted off the back of a mirror, this like really cool artistic version of the guys running on the football field. And, you know, we backlit it. We did with stand, like there was some really cool stuff. And when we finished, like the coach walked in and he was like just hyped up. Like I was like, okay. And the guy called me the next week and he was like, dude, that was fun. Let's do more. I was like, well, what do you want to do? And I was up on glass, you know, tech from going to glass build and the glass shows. And there was a dude that had switchable tint and he had set a projector up and he was projecting an image on a piece of glass. And then he, you know, made glass clear and the image went away. And I was like, okay, that's pretty hype. That's cool. So we pitched that to a head coach that has there's a basketball head coach that his office overlooks his practice gym. And so between home automation and this, you'd push a button under his desk, the lights would dim in his office, the piece of glass behind him would turn into basically a large projection screen. The projector that we mounted in the gym would play a highlight reel and then LEDs would pulsate, and it was a 16-year-old's dream. We did it and the company was born. I mean, that's literally how it happened.
Yeah. So you didn't have a goal of like, I want to do cool locker rooms. It was just kind of like you were into some cool stuff. You had some tech knowledge and something happened.
100%. I was looking for a creative outlet, just who I am. And he wanted to play. And I felt like I had my finger on the pulse of what was new and cool in the glass industry. And I knew that I could turn that into something. And, you know, between him and I, we did. And then we partnered up with another guy who had connections in the world and kind of knew the recruiting world, what that looked like. And the three of us pretty much kind of founded the whole company.
I think that's a super important, like, I don't know if it's a lesson, but I think that's super important to someone who is maybe in our industry and is not sold on it, or I think a second generation, or like myself, like there might be something that you're doing, and I've had this conversation with people, there might be something that you're doing at age 20, 21, 22 that you don't love about this industry, but there's a lot of different niches, and there's a lot of different ways that you can connect the dots, and what you're doing might appeal to someone that is sitting there doing estimating for commercial construction, and it's boring, right?
For sure.
But if they sharpen their skills, they stay up on the knowledge, they know the stuff, there's opportunities out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think this was a side hustle. This was just for fun, and it's what I do full time for a living. And if you'd asked me at 18, what are you gonna be doing? I wouldn't have told you that I would own a glass company at any point, and I wouldn't have told you that I would own ultimately an interior design company for college sports. I wouldn't have told you either of those things. Just one thing led to another, and I saw an opportunity where I could control the materials. That was a big one for me. I got tired of being told that my frameless shower door hardware was sitting in a boat in the harbor, and they didn't know what container it was in, and I would get it when I get it. Meanwhile, my buddies who have the same kind of glass company that I have that turn way more revenue than I do, they were getting their hardware with no problem. And I just got really tired of that crippling my business. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I control the materials. Like, I can design and show a coach a picture. He doesn't care what I make that stuff out of. Just
I got you.
like the rendering.
So what forced you to buy that shower hardware that was sitting out in a boat?
It was coming out of COVID. We had already kind of had some issues, but as an industry, there was a lot of supply. I mean, there was a lot of supply issues, especially for the small guy. So
the change for you was becoming the designer. You can choose something that doesn't have to go through that process.
For sure. I had in 2018, I had gone through a divorce, and then about 8 to 10 months later, there was an embezzlement in the glass company. Like a whole thing. And it crippled me pretty good. And then kind of got out of that. Not really. I'm still having to deal with it. But for the most part, I felt like we had kind of got on the upswing, and then COVID happened. And then we kind of got through that. And then the supply chain happened. And I'll just be honest with you, it sucked the life out of me. I got tired of being treated like a number. And I'm not saying every supplier was this way, but for the most part, I felt like I felt like the industry had turned into an industry run by accountants. And I just didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. And, I'd poured my heart into that thing. I mean, when I was on Fixer, I could have worn Anderson glass on my shirt, but I wore a shirt that said Glazier, like that was my heart was in this place. It was to the industry, and I'm still there. It's bittersweet, to be honest with you, but I just got tired of kind of getting pushed around and it wasn't just that. It was all of those things together. And just kind of, I was like, this other thing is taking off, and I control it, and I don't have to deal with that stuff. So I just made the move.
Yeah. I guess you owned Anderson Glass. So like what weren't you in control? Was it that for the home builder, it had to be X?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, and the other thing was we had pushed some other stuff, like on Fixer Upper. So we got kind of really popular for coming up with these like grid style showers and things like that. So you had people hitting you up for that. Well, steel had gone up. So now these things are, pretty expensive. And, it was a culmination of, what you were using hardware wise, what pricing it got to, what your lead times were. If I'm trying to make a client happy, there were literally points where we were going and installing frameless showers with whatever hardware color we could get.
Yeah.
And going back and changing it out once we got the new hardware in. And that's, from a business model, if you're any kind of business person, you can see from the outside that that's a pretty ignorant way to run.
Yeah, no, we were doing some of that with some storefront doors too, so I can relate there.
Yeah, you feel it.
I got more opportunity based. That's the key word of this show. But this is the first time ever we're going to throw a little segment into the Glazier Nation podcast. So we're running a March Madness best glass shop name, and I got 2 brackets that I'm going to have you pick. You're not the deciding factor for who moves on. They're being voted on, but you and I are going to hash it out.
Okay.
The first bracket, both of these glass shops are owned by the same individual. So I did pit them against each other in the first round. Fair. I felt that was only fair.
Sure.
But I did let Joe Hanna, who's a great friend of the podcast, enter both his companies here. So his company's Dead On Glass and A1 Glass and Glazing.
I'm gonna go with Dead On.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a slam dunk. I don't really think it's.
Yeah, I feel like A1's that old school way of being at the front of the yellow pages, which some of your people are listening. They're going, "What are yellow pages?" You know,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that was your organic way. So I feel like that was Dead On wins.
Dead On's good, and his logo is like a skull and everything. So
I'm all about it.
yeah, I see you got the sleeve going. Yeah, we'll go Dead On Glass. Dead On Glass.
Dead On Glass.
Y'all can go vote, glazernationpodcast.com. The second matchup we got here is Custom Glass versus Corbin Glass.
Bro, that's tough. I mean, I'm going to go Corbin Glass.
Going Corbin. Just the family name.
Says, yeah. I mean, I'll let you know that my dad was real original with ours. You know, Anderson Glass. He was like, oh, that works. Yeah.
My dad's glass shop was JDS Enterprises, which stood for Jack and Debbie Spellman.
There you go.
So
my dad still does a little bit of glass, and his is B&E commercial. So it's Becky and Earl. So yeah,
there you go.
You can't change it. You can't change
it. I'm gonna disagree with you here. I'm gonna go Custom Glass.
Okay.
Primarily because Carla, female glazer, was a guest a couple episodes ago from Custom Glass.
Okay. If you'd have told me it was a female owner, I've got daughters. I might have changed my mind on that. But just based on name,
she made a glass crown. She cut a glass crown to wear for the podcast occasion. So
that's legit.
I'm going Custom Glass there. Dead On Glass. Again, go vote. glazernationpodcast.com. That's my first time ever trying to run a little bit into the podcast. So
I like it. No, that's fun.
I'll have to put some sound bumpers or something, make it fun. Other opportunities that you hinted at this when I asked about, you know, what doors might have opened from Fixer Upper, and you said you had the opportunity to speak at some places. I know there's a couple of topics that you're passionate about. The first one being mental health.
Big fan.
I think that is an important topic. I think it's probably a topic that gets absolutely buried in our industry and not talked about at all. So what made you talk about it? Who'd you talk about it to? And do you still talk about it?
I talk about it all the time. I'm really good friends with Andrew Harry with NGA. And so he kind of knows, like he's known, you know, that I struggle with my own mental health issues and that I'm not scared to talk about it. And so, you know, I was kind of getting out of the industry and he, you know, I was watching this Anthony Bourdain. I love that dude. I was watching this documentary about him and there was a part that just hit me. I'm like, dude, I gotta talk more, you know? So I texted him that night. I'm like, dude, I'll pay to come to Vegas for Glass Build. Just give me a stage and a microphone. I don't care where it's at. Let me talk about mental health. And he went to the NGA and they put together an entire board and like 4 or 5 of us sat up there and talked and they opened it up for questions. And probably one of the coolest things I've seen this industry do in a very long time. That was out of the box, you know, that wasn't about making money. It was about taking care of your people. So that's, you know, that's kind of where I've seen it go. We haven't talked about it much. I think they're doing another bit of it this year. I'm not exactly sure what it looks like. I haven't seen the whole format, just because I don't follow the pulse of the industry like I used to, but it sounds to me like they're staying on it.
Yeah. So someone listening, maybe they've got some issues. Maybe they're not really aware of it. Maybe they don't want to talk about it. You know, a guy out on a job site, where does he start with that?
You know, I think one of the reasons that this is so taboo and that we don't talk about it is because of pride. You know, I think that we're supposed to be tough dudes and tough chicks and we're not supposed to, you know, be emotional or show emotion or, you know, and I think that's generational too. I think the guys above, I'm a Generation Xer, you know, so it's easy for me to bridge the gap, especially because I've got, you know, kids, you know, my oldest is 24. And so like, I'm in that phase where like, I know how to deal with my dad and I know how to deal with my kid and I can bridge this gap really, really well. So I think everybody's a little bit different. Right. But at the end of the day, I think dropping pride, just saying, man, I'm struggling, and telling somebody, the idea that you have to be alone is foolish. And so I think you got to talk to somebody. I talk to a therapist pretty regularly, and it's huge. It's changed everything for me. I've talked about stuff I would talk about with anybody else. I think finding the right therapist is big. I think you got to do a little homework, and sometimes it sucks, man. I did, I don't know, probably like 4 or 5 sessions with somebody once, and I was like, this isn't the person for me. And I just changed. It was simple. It's like going to a dentist that you don't like, or a doctor that you don't like, or hiring somebody that you don't like, or working, whatever. Just change it. But I think buckling down and being willing to talk about it is something. And the other is asking people if they're okay. And when they say, yeah, and that's not, maybe ask again. You sure?
Yeah. I mean, our industry is tricky. I mean, I've been called a pansy for washing my hands,
Yeah.
Guys out on a job site, that's the image, that's the persona. I'm a blue collar, hardworking dude. I don't have mental health issues. Mental health issues are for those people, right?
Sure. And here's the thing, man. Like, I don't like the Dallas Cowboys, but I'm not knocking anybody for liking the Dallas Cowboys. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So just because somebody's going through something, I don't have to understand that they're going through it to know that they're going through it.
Yeah. And
at the same time, some of those dudes, they have vices that they're not talking to you about. They're going home and they're either drinking or they're smoking, or, they're a lot. I've worked with a lot of those dudes.
Yeah.
I've been, I did this for a long time, and most of them have a vice. The ones that are giving you that line either really are happy-go-lucky and they don't get it, but they're not usually like giving you shit about it. Or if they are, they've got a vice. They're drinking or they're smoking when they get home.
Yeah.
And that's an outlet too. I'm not knocking it. That's an outlet too. It might not be the appropriate one, but at that time it's serving a purpose for them.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't advise, I've worked with guys who went home and drank a 30 rack every night. That is not advisable behavior. That is not, healthy, but
it's not sustainable either. So
I will give a shout out to, we did a podcast with, Tom Jackson, Steel Encounters out in Utah, and they have set programs up for all of their employees that do they do training, right? They do technical training of our products and our tools and stuff, but they also do like a mental health thing. They do a drug and alcohol awareness thing. And this is like standard protocol for all their employees.
Awesome.
And I know that is not actually practical for every single glass shop, but there are other avenues for those glass shops where you can find a local, Glazier's Association or something like that. And maybe there's programs there. But providing that kind of thing, that, I wouldn't say every glass shop should be responsible for that, but shout out to Tom Jackson for doing that for his workers.
Dude, that's huge. And like you said, for some folks, that's not for small guys, that may not be the thing. What I found that works for me, and I'm not everybody, and I get that, but I don't have a problem talking about it. I talk about it pretty often. And so I've had folks that work for me that have come to my office like, can I talk to you? You talk about this all the time. Can I talk to you? I'm struggling right now. Or maybe they just want the day off, but like, just knowing that I'm talking about it has made several of my guys come to me at different times, and even friends. Like, it's not just people in the, in the industry. It's like, I've got buddies that'll hit me up like, "Bro, you're always talking about this stuff. Like help me out. What would you do if you were me?" And they'll break it down for me. And opening that door has been huge.
Yeah, and not everybody has someone, right? Like, so you mentioned outside of our industry, there's this group called Dad Awesome. And I think it was the founder. There's a group of guys where I live. They had a thing. Come on over. Come check this thing out. I went over with my buddy, and for lack of a better terms, and this is another thing that blue collar guys might look at and like kind of, what are you doing? It sounds like a yah sisterhood thing, but like it was just kind of a chance for like dads to get out with a group of dads, and like sometimes dads are struggling, right? So like, a glazer, a estimator, a dad, whatever it is, you've got to try and find some sort of support system. And if you work for Tom Jackson and they have something set up that you can find, or if you can find a therapist, somebody to talk to. If not, there's got to be somebody in your circle that you can go talk to instead of continuing down that path, right?
For sure. And I'll be honest with you, man, there's some of my closest friends on this planet aren't guys. They're females. And I've found that there's a lot less judgment when I'm struggling, or if there's something I want to talk about that maybe I am prideful about, and I don't want to share with my buddies because maybe I'm worried that they're going to say something or give me a hard time about it.
Sure.
Dude, I found that the female friends in my life are some of the coolest and best people in my world. And so, it doesn't always have to be your buddy. Sometimes it could be your buddy that's a girl, and vice versa. They'll hit me up for stuff like that, or whatever. Those friendships are amazing. So it doesn't have to be necessarily your homie that you hang out with, drink beer with or whatever. It could definitely be somebody else.
But I guess the moral of the story there is find somebody to talk to, right?
Dude, you don't have to be alone. I mean, there was a time in my life where I was going through it. I mean, it was the year that I was divorced and it kind of lost a bunch of money because from an internal threat. And dude, I sat on the floor of my place alone and thought, and I genuinely thought this is it. I can't do this anymore. And I thought I was alone. I didn't have to be, but I didn't speak up and I didn't reach out like I should have. And I know I had people that were there for me. So yeah, I think that's the answer. I think just because you think that you are alone, you're not.
I think that's important. As I'm a pretty introverted person. I'm an only child. Having two boys now, I kind of have this outside view of what it was like to be an only child. And my wife, like, she's fascinated by it. Like when I tell her, like, I see the boys doing something and she's like, you never did that. And I'm like, no, I just kind of did my own thing. I mean, I had friends, but not like my boys play. Right. So like, right. I'm just setting the background for me being a bit of an introverted person. But the point I'm trying to make is like, I think people would be surprised how many people would be willing to talk to them or help them in their circle, in their immediate circle, outside of their immediate circle. I think genuinely most people are willing to be helpful. So if you don't think you have someone to talk to, I'd challenge you that you probably do.
For sure.
The other topic that you've talked about, a little lighter, we'll go a little lighter on this one. Hiring millennials. Now,
millennials, yeah.
I gotta first off, I gotta lead off with something here. You said you're Gen X. At some point in my life, I was Generation Y. I remember very clearly. The local radio station was called Y100, and that was where you could listen to all your alt rock, right?
Okay.
I was born in 81, and I don't know what happened. Like 5-6 years ago, they changed it, and now I'm a millennial, and I'm not entirely happy about it.
Okay.
But I've come to terms with it, and it's okay, right? When you're talking about hiring millennials, though, like I think, I don't know, maybe older guys, the term millennials is no longer like 20 and 30-year-olds. Millennials are like 40 now.
Yeah, it depends on what age group you look at. So I was born in 79, and everything I ever looked at was Gen X, was through 80 or 81.
Yeah.
And then it was 81, 82 to 00 or 01, and that was your millennials.
Okay.
And Gen X was, before that, and then the boomers prior. So yeah, it changes. It depends on what, but 79 is my year, and it always falls in Gen X. So I just let it ride, man. I'm good with it.
Yeah, they didn't change that on you, because I mean it's blatantly clear that they did too, right? Because it goes Gen X, millennial, Gen Y, Gen Z now. Gen Z is like how old is that now? Like 18, 20?
Dude, I don't even know. I think Y is the millennials, right? Isn't that the same thing? Y.
I've also heard like they'll call millennials. There's millennials, and then there's like elder millennials.
Okay.
Which I guess is what I would be. It doesn't matter.
Here's the reality of it.
Yeah.
I hate stereotypes. I'm not a big fan of stereotypes. Like, you throw everybody in a bucket, you're doing it wrong. And right. so that's kind of the. I always, like, when I would do that speech, like hiring and retaining millennials, is like, maybe let's just call them young folks, because like I don't want to throw everybody into a bucket. Everybody's this one thing, because there's a pretty negative connotation that comes with with being a millennial, which is why you're probably upset about about that shit changing and,
Well,
and bringing you into it.
there was when the millennials were like 25 to 30, there was like a negative, they don't want to work, but now millennials are 40, and I mean, millennials are like CEOs and stuff now. So it's like,
Yeah, they're running stuff. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I think if people want to complain about young people now, if they need to stereotype, I think it's supposed to be Gen Y or Z, but that doesn't matter. Let's rephrase the question of how should people hire and retain young people? Let's get the stereotype title out of the way.
For sure. I think there's a lot that goes to this, but I think listening and adapting and changing is huge. You're young, and I'm still sort of in this business, to be honest with you, because my end product is aimed at a 15, 16, 17-year-old. I'm trying to get them to come to this school. So I'm still trying to figure that out. Like it's part of the world. But I think the technology is huge. I think being up to date, not having, everybody is logging hours on a piece of paper. I think having some tech in there is a big deal. I think staying with, celebrating your employees for who they are. I mean, we live in a pretty me-centric world now. Everybody wants to know how they get their face on something. Everybody's got 30 social media pages, and all we care about is this dopamine dump that happens when we're getting likes. It just is what it is. So I think playing to that's huge. We used to create videos and show off our employees' work. Was big time. I mean, you'd see them, you'd make a post, and you'd be like, this is the shower that John and Gary put in today, and then you tag them, and then they're seeing the likes that are happening to that, and then they're reposting it, and also that really helps because organically their buddies are like, did you put that in? And they're like, yeah, I put that in. They're like, oh, that's what you do? He's like, yeah, man, I'm in a different house every day. And, we're in these 400, 500,000 $1 million houses every day. We can see something new. It's fresh. It's cool. So it kind of helps that side of business too. But, I think celebrating them, I think showing a difference that they're making is a big deal for young folks. I mean, you talk to them on a job site or in my industry, talk to somebody that's a graphic designer, like, how you like it? Well, I want to make an impact. What does that mean? You've only been here for a short period of time, but that's what they want to make an impact. So let them make an impact, show them that they're making an impact. And I think you could do that really, really simply with, celebrating what they're doing, giving them the pat on the back that they want, whether that's through social media or it's a picture on a TV that's running, a loop of finished jobs. Maybe celebrate the best install of the week or the coolest, whatever that looks like. But I think that old school way of like slapping somebody with an old school Glazier who's going to run them off in a very short period of time, it's just not functional anymore. You got to get rid of that mentality, and create a culture that's just different. And you got to be willing to change. If you're not willing to change, and you stick with those old school Glazier guys, and I'm not talking bad about these dudes because they're the reason we're all doing this. I mean, but they weren't always running off help. At some point they were a journeyman Glazier. It's just the reality of it. And they're just teaching, or they're just treating everybody the way they were treated. But that stuff doesn't work anymore. Everything changes. Every game changes. And if you're not willing to change, it's going to pass you by, and you're going to be stuck with those dudes that retire and then you don't have anybody around. And that's going to be tough.
Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff in there. It's complicated, right? So your older guys have such an infinite amount of tribal knowledge that you somehow need to try and pass to the next generation. And to your point, if you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole, if you're putting a 20-year-old kid out on a job site with a 55-year-old guy, they're not going to jive. They're not.
Nope.
The old guy is going to want things done this way. The young guy is not going to want to do them that way. Maybe you get lucky. I don't know. But the other point in there was the social media stuff. And, as someone who hosts a glass podcast that we put clips on all social media, like I think that's real. And I don't think I realized it was real until I started like getting more involved in it. So we had a podcast, He was Glazier Nation's content creator of the year last year, a guy named Dalton Abram, young guy. And the conversation with him, it's like you got all these glass shops, manufacturers, whatever. Number one complaint, can't find good help, right?
Yep.
And is it because you're doing that square peg round hole thing, or is it because there's not people out there? Because I would argue that there are people out there. And Dalton's point was, the social media stuff. A 18-year-old kid is on social media, and they see oil guys, social media, like the stuff that's romanticizing those guys and that rugged lifestyle and the money that they're making and the places they get to work. They see that, it looks cool. You're competing with that. You're competing with whatever social media all the armed forces put out there. You're competing with D1 Design, who's trying to pull these guys into colleges to go play basketball and football, right? Like all these kind of glittery things that are grabbing their attention is what you're competing with. And if you take that person, you somehow get that person, right? And then you put them in the wrong scenario. It ain't going to work out well.
Yeah, it's definitely not. It's definitely not. And that's the downside to trying to figure out how do you tap into that knowledge that those old school dudes have, because like you said, they're a wealth of knowledge. I used to tell people, they'd be like, how come you don't just hire and promote so quickly? I'm like, dude, you may be on a job today, on a commercial job or a repair or whatever, and you may not see that same thing for another year.
Sure.
And it's that times 100. It's constant. There's so many facets, especially if you're a full service glass shop. There's so many facets of what this industry is. It's not just the same thing day in and day out. It is a lot, and it's a lot to learn. And so it's hard to train. And so if you've got somebody that you dump a bunch of money and time into to try to train them, and they get run off by the best guy on the team, like, you're just really working against yourself. So finding that balance, I think, is huge.
I think it becomes even more challenging, the way you just phrased that. Like I've seen some bigger shops that can kind of unionize their own shop, right? These 5 guys do this, these 5 guys do this, these 5 guys do that. But if you're working with a crew of 3 guys, each guy has got to be able to do everything. And if you got to hire a new guy, who's teaching them when those 3 guys need to be doing something?
Yeah. Well, that's the hard part. And I've hired guys that have worked for those type companies.
Yeah.
I worked for, so-and-so in the Metroplex, and I'm like, oh, this must be a great hire. And then I get them and I'm like, what do you do? You don't know how to do half the stuff. All I did was put mirrors in all day, every day.
Right.
I'm like, you're on a house, you didn't put a shower in? No, it was a different crew. We showed up, we put mirrors in, we left. Yeah. I'm like, oh, this was not a great hire. And it's, I mean, for most folks, they're out there, you need to learn it all. And it's just a tough one, man. So find a young help. And like you said, I'll be honest with you, the glass industry is pretty cool. I mean, there's some cool shit that is happening in our industry. I've seen glass wine rooms and stuff that just blow my mind. Like, people are doing stuff that I wouldn't have even, and I pushed the envelope as much as I could, obviously with safety in mind, but I was trying to do some really cool out there stuff. And I've seen stuff like that. I'm just like, so there's really cool stuff that we're doing. And if you're advertising right, putting your stuff out there, somebody's going to want to do that, because they're going to want to post a picture of it showing that they did it. I mean, that's the reality of it. Look what I did. That's pride. That's what you want. That's what you want in an employee.
A lot of there's some glass shops out there that are putting out like drone footage quality social media, and I think that's awesome. Sure. But if that's not your capability, I think you can just be more flexible and more open to that young hire, and listen to their ideas. And if you can incorporate some, that's great. It's you don't need to be posting 7 TikToks a day to attract young help, but some
for sure,
some level of flexibility of accepting of what the new reality is, where we're all kind of cyborgs living in these phones, right? But I agree with that. To your point, the glass is cool, man. It's the sexiest part of the building. There's no toilet partition nation podcast. So,
no.
Dustin,
definitely.
man, I'll wrap it up with you here. You got anything you want to throw in there? Any plugs?
No, dude, just you guys keep doing what you're doing. Like there was a time where I felt like, there was a group of guys and girls that were doing what they could do to see the industry keep moving in a direction that was positive and good. And, we weren't beating up other glass shops. We were friends with them. We were teaching them stuff. We were learning together. And I see people still doing that. I also still see the guys and girls that go hard in the paint in the chat rooms, trashing each other.
Sure.
If there's a way to monitor that and get that stuff out of there, that's bad for culture. But what you guys are doing, talking to folks and the folks that you're talking to, the guys and the girls in the industry, man, just keep doing that. There's a point where like this may become a lost art because, there'll be some TikToker in 20 years being like, what the hack is? Glass install. That's where the money's at. These guys are making six figures because there's not enough people doing it. What I mean? So like, keep pushing it, keep doing what you're doing. It's a great industry. I do miss it, but again, bittersweet. I still check on my friends and I still talk to all my glazing buddies, but yeah, man, just keep doing what y'all are doing. It's awesome.
Appreciate that. Yeah, it's all about raising the tide. Ryan Shoemaker on the last episode said it better than I did. Something about boats raising tides, working together. I don't remember it, but yeah, that's kind of what we're trying to do.
Yep. Those tides raise every boat, not just one or two. It's good for everybody. Yeah.
There.
I don't know exactly how it goes, but I know the saying. Yeah.
Appreciate you, Dustin. You have a great night, all right?
For you too. Appreciate it.